Hi, this is Crest and this is my video for my turtle project. So to start the project, I created a basic outline of the box shape. So the 4 squares with 2 on top of the third square. And so this is just my code to create the 4 squares and then the 2 on the top and bottom of the third one. I'll run that for you. I set the position to negative 400, comma 100 so that it would fit this entire screen. Next, I created the pattern for the first square, which is a basic checkerboard shape. So I set the turtle position to the negative 400, comma 100 to fill the first square. And then I created a for loop to create a square. And then I created a second square of a different color. And then I put both of those in a for loop of 4 to create a row of 8. Next, I created the second row by creating 2 squares and then putting that in a for loop. So it will also create a row of 8. And then I put all of that in a for loop of 4 to create an 8 by 8 square, which would fill the first square in my box. So I'll run that code for you. And I'll have to open it up. And so there goes the turtle creating the pattern for the first square. And then so my second pattern was some triangles with mini squares. So here to fill the second box, I moved the turtle to the negative 200, comma 100 position. And then I created the outline of that square so I could fill it with the red color. And then I created my triangles. So an equilateral triangle is a triangle with 3 angles of 120. So I moved the turtle forward 40, right 120, and I did that 3 times to create the triangle. And then I put that in a for loop of 5 to create 5 triangles in a row to fill the to make the first line of the square. Next, I wrote a code for mini squares to go underneath the triangle, and I put that in a for loop of 50. When I did the triangles by themselves, I had this gap at the bottom that I didn't like, so I put in the squares to fill in the space. I put those 2 codes into a for loop of 5 to fill the entire square, and I'll run that code for you. And so there were my triangles, and then these are my little mini squares just to create a different pattern within the bigger square and make it more aesthetically pleasing. So that does take a while to run, so I will show you my third code. This code, let's see. This code is the first time I used 2 turtles. I thought it would make the pattern draw faster, but it turns out that the turtles only move 1 at a time. And this also was the first time I used the random module to change the colors of each shape. So I created a list of different colors of green, just to give it more of like an ombre type effect. And then I set the turtle to the 0, 300 position because this pattern is going to fill the square at the top. At the top square, the square that's on top of the third square in the row 4. Sorry, just trying to figure that out. So the first part of the code is just to draw the outline of the big square so I could fill it with the color. And then next I named the second turtle and then positioned that to 0, 280, which is 20 spaces below where the first turtle is positioned, because first I created squares of 20 by 20 by creating a for loop of 4, moving forward 20, right 90, and then I put that in a for loop of 10 so that it would fill up the first row of the square. And then This is where I inserted my random choice for color so that each square would be a different color. And then down here is me positioning my turtle for the second row of squares. Next, I created a hexagon by making a for loop of 3. Sorry, these are triangles. So I did a for loop of 3 by moving forward 20 and then right 120. And I also put my random color choice module in here so that every color would be randomly chosen by the random module. And then I did that in a range statement of 10 also, so they would go across the board. And this is my code to change the position of the turtle for the second row of triangles. And then so here I just did the same thing. I created a code for the squares, changed the position for the third row. And then here goes my code for the second row of triangles, and I changed my position. And then I found it was easier to write the code 3 times so that I could change the position of the turtle to create, each row of the different shapes, either the square or the triangle. So I wrote those codes again, and then I put all of that in a for loop of 2 so that there would be 6 rows. And I'll show you the previous code, which there goes my finished triangle with the mini squares. And then I'll run this one for you. And this is my triangle and squares, but the squares and the triangles are the same size. And then you see the turtle is inserting a random color depending on what is chosen by that random module. That's the finished project. The fourth pattern, I set the position to 300, 0. This goes in the fourth square in that row of 4. And then I also use the random module for this pattern so I can create like a rainbow effect. I try to find out how to, make turtle choose colors in, a distinct pattern, but I wasn't able to find out how to code that, so I just did it randomly. On this code, I was just playing around with, I guess, different commands. So I inserted the random color choice inside of the for loop, and then I changed the pin color. So every time the turtle goes through the for loop, it'll change, the color of the pen. And then I went forward. I initially chose to use the variable size because I didn't know how big this was going to be in order to fit inside of the square. So I used size so that I could, reduce the size in each different code. And then I turned right 15, moved forward a certain amount, and then set the position back to the home position. So I forgot to mention, up here I set P to the turtle position so that every time the turtle goes through, these commands here, it'll return back to that original position. And then I put that in a for loop of 24. To get that number, I just kept running the code until the turtle created like a sunburst effect, so it went around in a full circle. And then in order to give the pattern some dimension and make it, less simple, I decided to do that 3 times, and each time I reduced the size of the turtle. This time I reduced the size 1.5. I divided the size by 1.5, and I decided to fill the shape that was created by this for loop, just, to make it more interesting. So after the turtle creates, the starburst effect, it'll fill it with a random color. And then this last code is me taking the size and dividing it by 2 to reduce it in half. And then I just played around with the numbers until I came up with 50, which fit perfectly inside the square. I'll run that for you. Oops, sorry, just forget my screen is off. So as you can see, the outer square is, you know, kind of a rainbow color. The not square, starburst. The second starburst is the one that's filled, and this time it was filled with yellow. And then, I mean, you can't really see the third one that much. See if I can pick a point. Here goes one right here. So it just gives it a little bit more dimension. So it looks kind of like a 3D type of shape. Okay, so the next pattern is right here. I moved this position to 0, negative 100. Yeah, so I'm trying to think. Oh, this is the top square in that third, that's on top of the third square in the row of 4. So this one I also used the random module to fill the shapes. And this is a pattern of squares and hexagons. So first I created the outer square so that I could fill it with blue. And then this time I also used 2 turtles because I found that after doing it the first time, it was easier to create 2 different shapes with 2 turtles. So I set this position to negative 118, so it would be under the squares that I create. I mean, sorry, not the squares. This one has rectangles. So my rectangles are 40 by 18, and so I moved this 18 spaces away from the initial position. And so here's my code to draw the rectangle. Rectangles are similar to squares except for you have to define 2 sides because they're different lengths. So here I inserted my random color choice. When I inserted it inside the for loop for the actual rectangle, I found that it filled it with 2 different colors versus 1 color. It kind of like cuts it into a right triangle type of shape. So I moved forward for 40, right 90, forward 18, and then right 90 again, which, you know, forms 2 sides of the rectangle. And then I put that in a for loop of 2. I put that in a for loop of 5, so it would go across the big square. And this is my code to reposition it for the next row of rectangles. And then here is where I created my hexagon. I tried to do the same thing as I did with the rectangle, with the color, with the random colors, but once I put it under the for loop of 5, it, you know, every square was still the same color, so I just put it in the for loop of 6. So in order to create a hexagon, it's 5 angles of 72, which equals 360. So I just moved the turtle forward 20 and then right 72 and then put that in a for loop of 5 to create that shape. And then this code here is, it moves forward 33 to create the next shape so they're not on top of each other. And then down here is the code to reposition it for the next row. And then this code down here is just another rectangle and another hexagon. That's some code I commented out. Because I was trying to hide the turtle so I can see the position. Because I did have to go backwards 5. Because up here I moved the turtle forward 7. It goes outside of the square. So I pick up the pen and go backwards 5. So that it doesn't, so that when I draw the next shape, it doesn't go outside of, out of the square that forms the box. Okay, and then I put everything in a for loop of 2, and I'll run that for you. And then you see the random modules picking the random colors, and then some of the rectangles have 2 colors, and then some have 1 just based on what the random module picks. Let's see. Sorry, I just ran that code. So the last one is the tetrahedron. So to create this shape, first you have to do but we have to do several helper functions because the shape is basically triangles within other triangles that form a bigger triangle. So first I created a code for a triangle, and then this one I put the variable size in it too because I wanted to make sure it fit within the box. Next, you create the code to select the color of each individual triangle. And then I inserted the code from above the triangle into the triangle color code. Then I created the subtetra code, which takes these 4 triangles that were defined in the triangle color and puts them together to form another triangle. So basically 2 triangles that are next to each other, one upside down between those triangles, and then one triangle sitting, I guess you would say face up on top of the upside down triangle, and then those 4 together create another triangle. And here are just my colors. I just decided to do like shades of gray. And so in order to position the triangles to create the tetra, you do have to change the angle of the turtle so that basically it's not writing the triangles on top of each other. Well, sorry, let me explain it better. So I insert the triangle color to draw the initial triangle. I move it forward the size that I chose to make the triangle. And then you create the second triangle, the 2 side by sides. Then you turn the angle to 60 so that the triangle is pointing in the direction to make the upside down triangle. Then I insert another one, move it forward the size, and then change the angle again to 60 to create the right side up triangle that goes on the top to create the triangle shape. Next, I wrote tetra face, and so in this code, I assigned P to the turtle position because once you create the face, so basically the face is you're creating 4 mini triangles inside of the triangle that you created in not the subtetra but in the triangle color. So it's basically making like a subtetra inside the triangle in the triangle color. So every time you make a new tetra, you want to set the position of the turtle back to the original position so that you can move it to the next triangle to make another subtetra. Sorry, I'm explaining this really poorly, but basically you're drawing 4 triangles inside of a triangle that you drew before. And so in order to make these triangles fit inside of the original triangle, I multiplied the size by 0.5, which is basically like dividing in half, so that they would fit. And then after you draw the tetra face, you put everything together in the tetrahedron. So I set the position of this to 0, 100 so that this shape would be in the middle of the square once it was completed. Then I created the outline square so that I could fill it black. And then here, well, sorry, I messed up. This position is the position of the square, which is the middle of the box. So it's the 3rd square in the row 4. This position down here, the 0, -75, is where I positioned the turtle so that it would draw the tetrahedron in the middle of the box. And then here is where I just put the tetra face code together. So the tetra face is, how to explain this, is the 4 triangles that were put together that each have 4 triangles drawn inside them. So here I arranged it so that I would draw 4 of those tetra face triangles and then make a new bigger triangle. So you enter the tetra face code and then you multiply it by 2 So like here you divided it, you basically divided it by 2 to cut the size in half, and then here you're multiplying the size so it's twice as big, so that it forms the bigger triangle. So first you put the first triangle, move it forward twice the size, and then you put the second triangle, so those are the 2 triangles side by side. Then you change the angle just like you did above to create the upside down triangle, move that, and then create the right side up triangle. And then I'll run that code for you. So there goes my outline box, and then here you can see like it makes the triangle, makes the mini triangles inside. Makes the triangle, puts the triangles together, and puts the mini triangle, and then makes 4 of those. Alright, thanks for watching.